Well, the last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia expires on Thursday, tomorrow. With no replacement in place, both countries could be free to develop nuclear weapons without limits at a time when the world is seeing multiple international crises. There are worries that it could lead to a new arms race.
Nuclear war, the doomsday scenario. Both the US and Russia have enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world multiple times. After World War II, the US and the Soviet Union built thousands of nuclear weapons, the nuclear arms race. Starting in the 1970s, they signed treaties to limit the number of nuclear warheads each side could have, meant to reduce the risk of a nuclear war. In 1991, U.S. President George H.W. Bush signed the first START treaty with his counterpart Mikhail Gorbachev. Then in 2010, Barack Obama and Russian President Dmitry Medvedev negotiated and signed New START, meant to last until 2021, but then extended for another 5 years. New START limited both sides' warheads and delivery systems. The US and Russia agreed to have no more than 1,550 deployable nuclear warheads and 700 deployed ground, submarine, and bomber planes. It called for on-site inspections and an exchange of data meant to keep both sides in communication. Russia has already suspended inspections, first during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2021, then in 2023 after the US backed Ukraine following Moscow's full-scale invasion. But the treaty remained in force. Donald Trump returned to office claiming he would cut nuclear weapons.
I'm going to have that conference primarily with China and Russia because those are the two that really are out there. We were talking about denuking, denuclearizing, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way.
Russia has said the U.S. has not shown interest in extending the New START treaty. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, now deputy head of the Security Council, says the world should worry.
For almost 60 years, we have not had a situation in which strategic nuclear capabilities were not constrained by something. Now, such a situation is possible. I'm not saying this would immediately mean catastrophe or a nuclear war, but it should concern everyone.
Trump said last month that he wants a better nuclear treaty, but negotiations could take years. Meanwhile, Russia has escalated its development of hypersonic and ballistic missiles, some of which it's already used against Ukraine. And Trump has called for a Golden Dome missile defense system over the U.S., which Moscow sees as a provocation and could use as a pretext for building even more missiles in order to overwhelm defenses in the case of a nuclear war. New START may not have been enough for all these reasons. But there's one more. China is also rapidly increasing its nuclear arsenal, giving the U.S. a big reason not to limit its own stockpiles.
And William Alberque joins me here at the big table. He's a senior adjunct fellow at the Pacific Forum and a former director of NATO's Arms Control, Disarmament, and Non-Proliferation Center. William, good to have you back in the studio.
Thank you.
So we're on the eve of the end of this arms control treaty. Are we on the eve of a new nuclear arms race?
I think we're already in the middle of an arms race. As they just said, China is building up very quickly, very rapidly, and we don't know what the ceiling is for their forces. Russia has been building up their strategic forces since the Second Gulf War really gave them more oil money. Putin has really prioritized his nuclear forces. And so he's been building up. Then in March 2018, he announced all these new systems, all these new nuclear delivery systems, these terror weapons. So I think the United States may be joining a race that's already very much well in progress.
And what are the chances then of a new treaty coming that would have the U.S., Russia, and China as signatories on this?
Well, as I mentioned, with China building up, we have no idea how large an arsenal China wants. Do they want to match the United States? Do they want to match the United States plus Russia? And then for the United States, what do? Do we match Russia plus China plus one missile?
But at some point, with nuclear weapons, the law of diminishing returns sets in very early, doesn't it? I mean,
it really does.
You have 100 warheads, and how many do you need to blow up the whole planet?
Right. In the Cold War, they used to say if you had more than several thousand nuclear weapons, you're just bouncing rubble at that point.
Yeah.
But China sees this as prestige. So they want to be a preeminent global power, so they're going to have to try to probably match the US and Russia. And then in the Cold War, the lesson we learned over and over again is public pressure and just ego means you have to have more. There's never been a gap that any country has ever really been able to accept during the Cold War, so I think we might not really have arms control on the horizon.
Yeah, so we have obviously learned our lessons, or any lessons from the past. What about the world's other nuclear powers? I mean, there are other countries with the bomb.
And who have hostile relations with some of the nuclear...
India, Pakistan, for example,
Correct.
right?
So India and China are implacable foes. Will India have to match China's number? Pakistan is India's implacable foe. Will Pakistan have to match India's number? North Korea, in the meantime, is building more and more missile systems, submarines, rockets, everything. So we're looking at a situation where it's not just US and Russia. It's not just US, Russia, and China. It's all the nuclear powers may be adding. Iran may be joining the race eventually. We're looking at a very unstable situation.
So we're actually almost going back to a level of danger that we haven't known since before the end of the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union?
But even more confusing, because at least during the Cold War, it was really the US and the Soviets that we had to worry about. But with all these other countries joining the race, with India, with China, with Pakistan, what are the UK and France going to do? Are they going to be the smallest arsenals in the world? We just don't know. So this is going to be a much more complex system of alliances with racing that's going to make it a much more complex system to get where stability is. And once countries see a prospect for stability, then maybe they can go for arms control. But where is that stability point?
The chance of a nuclear war beginning tomorrow greater than it's ever been? Yes or no?
I would say it's more confusing than it's ever been. I mean, in the Cold War, we had nuclear landmines, we had nuclear artillery, so the chances of a small miscalculation going awry very quickly is there, but the guardrails are coming off, and so we're much more dangerous than we've been in the past 30 years.
Okay. William Alberque, William, as always, good to have you in the studio. Unfortunately, this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.